So what made me buy a Stratocaster, you might ask? Well, my son came over with his standard Strat, Mexican, and we was playing with it for a while, and he left it with me for a few weeks, and I thought, I just got hooked. I thought, oh my God, this sounds great. So I thought, okay, I'll go and I'll get a Strat. I had about 3 weeks of driving myself nuts. I was looking at this guitar from Thomann, which is a David Gilmour tribute thing, but the reviews on it were so bad. I thought, oh Jesus, I'm not gonna spend 200 quid on something that's going to be terrible. All the reviews from people that I respect were very, very bad. So I thought, okay, forget it. So now I'm thinking, okay, what can I do? I'll go to the guitar shop. I'll try out a few Strats. So I went to the local guitar shop. I asked them if they had a standard Stratocaster. They said no, we haven't had one of those for a long, long time. All we've got is players and affinities. And we're not getting any new guitars in for about 6 months because they've got problems with Brexit, they've got problems with the pandemic, they just can't get stock. So there's virtually no guitars around. So I played the affinity and I played the player, and I thought, weren't really doing anything for me. They were okay, but they weren't doing anything for me. And anyway, I had to go and get a new lens. I'm always looking for new lenses, something that actually freaking focuses. So I went down to the pawn shop and picked up a lens, right? Turned out to be a piece of old crap. But I bought the lens, and while I was in the shop, I turned around and I saw this hanging up, right? I didn't know what it was. I knew it was a Strat, but I didn't know it was a Squier or Fender or whatever. And I saw it and I went, can I have a look at that guitar? And they went, yeah. So they gave it to me, and I'll tell you what, no joke, guitarists will understand this. As soon as I grabbed it, I went, I'm buying it. I knew immediately, because it just felt right. It felt spot on. It's got a very shallow C neck. It's very, very comfortable, and it feels just right. And I just bought it. I bought it straight away. And I didn't have any amp to plug it into. So I thought, Jesus, I don't know, this marking on the top here, that someone's tried to distress it or relic it. And I thought, what if they've done anything to the insides? Is there anything underneath them? I couldn't test it for about a week, and I was going nuts, but not going nuts, but I was getting frustrated, right? Anyway, I eventually got it into an amp. Plays beautifully. Let me just play you a couple of chords here. You should always play an electric guitar unplugged initially, because that will tell you what the tone's like. You can hear the tone straight away.
So what is it exactly that we've got here? Prepare for some surprises, because I was surprised.
This is a Squier standard Stratocaster built in 1996 by the Yakko company in Taiwan. Sounds great. So what is a standard Stratocaster? Well, this is one, okay? They've stopped making them now. All you can get apparently is, I think they're calling them professionals now. But this is a standard Stratocaster built by Squier, and it's got a bit of an identity problem because on the headstock it says made in Japan, on the neck plate it says made in China, but the serial number tells you it was made in 1996 in Taiwan. Now Taiwan is a disputed territory between the Chinese and the Japanese. Both of them claim it, but the Taiwanese, they want to be Taiwanese. So when this is made in China, it doesn't mean the Communist People's Republic of China. It means the Republic of China, which is commonly known as Taiwan. Two separate countries. But, people get confused. Anyway, this was made in 1996, which was a pivotal year for Fender. There's been many pivotal years, but this was a particular one. So what's the details on this guitar? Let's go through the specification. We have got Wilkinson Deluxe Kluson tuners. We've got Leo Fender's Innovation, which is the safety tuning pegs where you put the end of the string down through the peg and wrap it around. Saves people getting injured. It's got a bone nut. It's got a nice maple neck, rosewood fingerboard, slab board actually. It's a big lump of rosewood on there. Mother of pearl inlays. Beautiful fretwork. 25-year-old guitar, you would expect everything to be good on this. There's no spratting or anything like that. Rolled fingerboard, very, very nice. This is what you call a slab board neck. It's a very big lump of rosewood on there. So the dimensions of a standard Stratocaster are 25.5-inch scale length for the neck. The body, this is a full-size body, either made from alder or ash. It's 1 3/4 inches thick, so it's a full-size Strat body. So they're the dimensions that Leo Fender set for this guitar. It's got 22 frets, got 3 single coil pickups, 2 tone controls, 1 volume control, 5-way selector switch, tremolo arm that works really good on this guitar because it's got a huge lump of zinc in the back there as a tremolo block, so this thing doesn't go out of tune. So why would you buy a Squier when you could buy a Fender? Well, I went out to buy a Fender Stratocaster, and the ones that I looked at, there was no standards in the shop. Apparently there's a shortage. All they had was an Affinity and a Player, and I played both of those. It didn't really do much for me. It was okay, but I didn't think anything of it. But I was going to buy a new lens for my camera down at the pawn shop, as I often do because they're cheap. Fraction of the price you pay for a new one. And so when I was in the shop, I saw this hanging up, and I went, oh, I recognise it's a Strat straight away. I didn't realise what it was. I knew nothing about it. So, but when they gave it to me, as soon as I grabbed it, I went, okay, that's mine. I'm buying it, right? I just knew. If you talk to any guitarist, they'll tell you, you bond with the things. It's a weird thing. You kind of bond with it straight away. It's got a very nice low C-shaped neck. Very, very comfortable and very easy to play all the way up the neck. And the frets are dressed beautifully all the way up. You know, it's just a brilliant guitar. I won't tell you how much I paid for it. I'll let you guess. But it was a steal. And I got home and I didn't have an amp with me at the time. This was somewhere else. And I couldn't test it. So I was thinking, oh my God, it sounds great. Whenever you buy an electric guitar, you should always play it unplugged. That'll give you an idea of the tone of the instrument. This sounded beautiful just as it was, and I was thinking, oh God, I want to get it plugged in. So anyway, let's plug it in and see what we got. Can you hear that hum? That's the distinctive sound of single coil pickups. But if you put it into like the 4 position, it cuts it down because they're cancelling each other out. Or the 2 position. So let's have a listen to that quacky sound. I'm just going to play you a chord on the 5 different places to let you hear what it sounds like. So this is on the neck pickup. Neck and middle, much brighter. That's that quack. That's that distinctive Stratocaster quack sound. Very bright. Middle pickup, much fuller, more rounded sound. Middle and bridge, back to rock and roll. Yeah, definitely. And on the bridge pickup, get your country on. It's got that distinctive quack of a Stratocaster. So, why did I buy it? Well, like I said, I went to the shop and I was going to buy a Strat because my son came over with his Mexican Stratocaster. And I was playing it for a few weeks and I thought, oh man, this is really good. I haven't owned a Fender since the 1980s because they were just terrible. So I just avoided them completely. But this thing is fabulous. I'm really enjoying it. Right, now, so that's the short answer to the Squier. Is it any good? They're brilliant. There's no excuse. Unless you're like a label snob, these guitars are just as good as a Fender American Stratocaster. Just as good. In some cases, they're better. That'll get people really, really, really rolled up. But it's the truth. People who know about Stratocaster guitars know that the Japanese made brilliant guitars. They still make brilliant guitars. The Yako company makes excellent guitars. And there's a story that you may have heard, you may not have. If you're not into the guitar world, you probably wouldn't have heard of it. But there was a time when Fender was in big trouble. And they went to Japan, because Japan was selling copies of Stratocasters at considerably less than a Fender Stratocaster made in America. So the Fender company made a deal with a couple of Japanese guitar manufacturers and said, look, you can stick our logo on your guitars and sell them as Fenders. And they went, okay. And you can bump the price up or whatever. But they decided very quickly that no, the Fender name wasn't good enough. So they took the Fender Stratocaster name off and put Squier on, because the Squier guitars had a much better reputation and were more desirable in Asia. So there's a lot of, lot of strange stories about this stuff. But the other thing about this guitar, about identity crisis, is this. On here you've got the 50th anniversary, which was 1996, 50th anniversary of the Stratocaster, or the Fender company. But you've also got this custom shop logo on there, so I don't know where that came from. It does make me wonder when you look at these guitars, because Leo Fender had a very specific idea in his head. The idea was to make a universally standard guitar, that when you wore the neck out, you just took the neck off and threw it and bought another neck. That was his idea. It was, revolutionary idea. Because you've got to remember, now everyone looks at guitars like this and go, oh yes, electric guitar. But when this came out, this was like radically different, because all other guitars were like an acoustic, even Les Paul, the legendary Les Paul, with his Gibson encounter. Gibson didn't want to know Les Paul's electric guitar. And he and Leo Fender knew each other, and they used to talk about electric guitars all the time. And Les Paul was trying to get his Gibson deal going. They didn't want to know for years. Leo Fender said to Les Paul, come in with me, we'll make our own guitars. Les Paul, for whatever reason, said no. Leo Fender struck out on his own and created a Telecaster. A couple of years later, he produced a Stratocaster. Never looked back. Now, Les Paul had to go to Gibson, and he had basically called it the log. It was just one big lump of wood made from a railway sleeper or something. And he put two fake pieces of guitar in it because people wouldn't accept that this log that he was playing was a musical instrument. They couldn't get it around their heads. When this guitar came out, this was revolutionary. People were looking at it going, what the hell is that? Because no one had ever seen anything like it. You had pedal steels from Hawaii that were like flat guitars like this. But to see something like this was revolutionary. And Leo Fender was a very clever manufacturer. He realised, make the neck standard, interchangeable. Make the body standard, interchangeable. Make all the electronics standard. He just standardised everything so that these guitars could be made by semi-skilled labour. And in some cases, unskilled labour. And that's how they're made today. They're still made that way today. When you go to the custom shop, they're people who are luthiers. They've been doing it for years, but they're basically just, doing bespoke guitars for individuals. So you can phone them and say, I want this neck, I want that body, that, whatever configuration you want. They'll make it specifically. But the rest of the factory is just, ordinary people, not generally highly skilled luthiers. There might be, a few on the finishing side of things, but it's a basic guitar, very basic guitar, and very simple construction method. That was the whole point. So when you look at a standard Squier and you look at a standard Fender Stratocaster, they're identical if you find the right one. And this one is the right one. It ticks all the boxes and it sounds great. I'm going to take it apart and see what details are on the neck, and I'm going to see what's inside these cavities, what kind of routing we've got in there, and I'm going to see what these pots are. I suspect they're 500s. I'm going to check what these pickups are, because it sounds beautiful. There are Squiers that are more expensive than Fender guitars. There are Fenders that have got worse components than Squier guitars. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. But if you can get your hands on one of these standards from Yakko especially, this is spot on. It's perfect. And it was cheap as chips. So if you can find one of these with that YN6 on the neck plate, grab it. Grab it fast, because there wasn't a lot of these made. This was 1 year that these were made, and the neck is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, that's enough for me. See you next time. Bye now.